So I'm at a point in my Minecraft world where I've done a lot, I've adventured, I've built a lot of stuff. Now I just want to go collect all the rare items. So today we're going to a trial chamber so I can get a heavy core so I can make a mace. And before you say it, I know I don't really need a mace, but I don't know, I just kind of want one. Anyways, I've got some great scary stories to read you today, so let's go ahead and get into the first one. The first story today is from r/NoSleep from user Unalloyed Saint Trina. 30 years ago, my coworker was dying, and I could have saved him. I didn't. I've been cursed ever since. Today marks the anniversary of Mickey's death, and I can't hold it all inside anymore. I need to come clean, not just about what happened that night, but about everything. Every unconfessed mistake and every bitter failure. That's why it's tormenting me after all. The shape in the sky is drawn to my guilt. Every night it's there, hovering past my bedroom window or swirling in the darkness above the treetops, begging me to acknowledge the heartless shit I've done. And finally, here I am. I'm ready to confess. Fresh out of high school, I scrapped my college plans and got hired as a night security guard. The job didn't pay well, and it certainly didn't make my parents proud, but it was low stress, and that's all I cared about. There was never any trouble. What sane person would leave a warm bed to break into a rubber factory? Mickey, a burly Irishman about 10 years my senior, onboarded me. For how much time we spent together, it was astonishing how little we knew about each other. The man wasn't a born conversationalist. If he hadn't come back from his honeymoon with a vicious lobster red sunburn, I doubt he would have told me about the wedding. Honestly, I was happy with the professional distance. Mickey was a laid-back guy who didn't expect much from me. No expectations meant no pressure. God knows I don't work well under pressure. Our last night together was certainly no exception. It was after midnight. We were doing our rounds, strolling through the dimly lit parking lot. Mickey was lagging a few feet behind me, chowing down on an oversized gas station hoagie. Crickets chirped in the pines that surrounded the factory. There was a sudden clack. The hazy beam from his flashlight stopped bobbing along the asphalt. It took me a few seconds to realize something was wrong. I turned around. He was wobbling in place, clawing at his neck and chest, skin paler than the moon, lips tinted this nightmarish blue-gray. The half-eaten sandwich lay scattered at his feet. He was choking. I knew he was choking, and I'd been taught what to do. Get behind him, wrap my arms around his belly, and thrust. Just as I was about to help, a familiar dread began crawling across my skin, and my brain erupted with fitful static. The specter of doubt was creeping in. Was I sure I knew what to do? What if I made a mistake? Should I thrust in and up, or just in? Did I remember all the steps? Was I supposed to reach into his mouth and try to remove the blockage first? And while those asinine questions left me paralyzed, I just stared at the dying man. Fear was making a mess of his face. Bulging eyes, sharp creases, quiet, contorted terror. The light left him. His body hit the asphalt with a rich, splintering thud. I didn't move. Couldn't tell you exactly how much time passed. It was more than enough to save him, I know that much. Eventually, autopilot kicked in. My legs started dragging me towards the factory. By the time my mind caught up to my muscles, I was already inside, dialing 911 on the break room's rotary telephone. The dispatcher claimed we were lucky. An ambulance happened to be passing by our otherwise remote location at that very moment. As I sprinted back outside, I told myself everything was going to be okay. Mickey and I were the only people here. The camera shouldn't have recorded his death. We'd been too far from the building when he started choking. I could sell them any story I wanted to. No one had to know how badly I messed up. Red lights flickered on the horizon. I was so captivated by relief that I nearly tripped over his corpse, looking down with just enough time to skid to a stop. That's when I noticed something. Something on his wrist was glinting against the approaching light. I bent over. It was the silver strap of some cheap watch. Tiny flecks of glass were scattered around where the watch face had been pulverized between his wrist and the asphalt. I perked my ears. I heard a distant siren, but no ticking. No, 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 I whispered, furiously rotating the strap. The broken watch read 12:31 a.m. Mickey's time of death immortalized. I checked my own watch. My heart plummeted. 1:22 a.m. I could practically hear the police officer asking, "What kind of person waits a whole 50 minutes before phoning for help?" The wailing of the sirens grew louder. The flashing lights were closing in. Instinct took over. I ripped the watch from his wrist and shoved it into my pocket. The ambulance screeched to a halt. EMS leaped from the vehicle, asking what happened as they attempted to resuscitate the long-dead Mickey, and I played my part. I told them he choked and that I'd done everything I could. They lifted the cadaver onto a gurney, carted him into the waiting ambulance, and sped away. A few seconds later, I bolted to my car. I rolled down the windows and floored the accelerator. Wind tore through the vehicle as I shot onto the interstate, cold air stinging me awake. I weighed my options. I could bury the watch, or keep it, or toss it into one of Missouri's endless landfills. In the end, though, I knew exactly where it belonged. It belonged at the bottom of the reservoir my grandpa had built behind his mansion, with all the other broken things. Years had passed since I'd last stepped foot on the property. I parked along a ditch. A single paved footpath connected the dirt road to the boarded-up estate. Painful energy seemed to radiate from the dilapidated structure. Felt like I had a migraine coming on as I walked along the edge of the property, navigating the cluttered mass of pines and white oaks until I reached a clearing and the musty stench of decaying algae confirmed I'd arrived. I lit a cigarette and sucked in some thick gulps of smoke, trying to repress the old fear bubbling beneath my skin. In my family, I've always been the odd one out, the run of the litter. My older brother is a Nobel laureate. My twin sister is an Olympian. Both my parents were successful lawyers, and my grandpa earned a Purple Heart in Vietnam. And I'm just me. Not dumb, but chronically scatterbrained. Not weak, but incredibly clumsy. And anxious. God, I was anxious about everything as a kid. Put it all together, and the diagnosis became clear. I was defective. My parents figured if anyone could fix me, it'd be Grandpa. The familial patriarch, the so-called perfect man, the one who'd made our fortune from nothing. I spent most summers at Grandpa's estate. They were nothing short of hell, but you want to know the real messed up part? I can feel the toll those summers took on me, but I don't remember most of them. They were physical drills, mental exercises, prayer, hikes that seemed to take weeks to complete. But the specifics of all that? Couldn't tell you. The memories are a hazy, soupy mess. The only events I remember with clarity were the punishment ceremonies. You see, if I ever made a mistake, the parameters of which were subjectively defined by Grandpa, I'd be taken out to the reservoir after sunset. He'd hand me something I loved. A toy, an item of clothing, a framed picture. Then he'd command that I make amends. Each mistake is a debt, Lucas. A debt to ourselves and to the gracious heart of the universe. It's time to pay up. A broken offering to counterbalance what you broke today. I'd snap the toy, tear at the clothing, crush the frame beneath my bare foot. Then I'd throw it into the reservoir and watch that tiny piece of me sink. All the while, Grandpa would be on his knees, shaking clasped hands at the sky, earnestly begging something for forgiveness. I always assumed he was pleading with God. Between furious bouts of Vietnamese, he'd repeat the words, "no hell," in English, over and over again. Although he was very particular about what went into the reservoir, he was significantly more particular about keeping my broken things sunk. One night, Grandpa caught me attempting to dredge up the fractured remains of my favorite action figure with a bit of a fishing line. He didn't mince words. "If you ever defile these gracious waters again, I'll kill you, child." Or worse. As someone that's always been riddled with anxiety, none of this improved my performance. It only made me more skittish, more impulsive, and more dysfunctional. So I can't say I was upset when the old coot died, drowned in his own damn reservoir. Bon voyage, asshole. I took the final drag of my cigarette, pulled the broken watch from my pocket, and lobbed both of them into the reservoir. They sank with a dull plop. I expected solace, Much as the punishment ceremonies terrified me, I did recall feeling a gentle warmth flooding through my body when broken things drifted beneath the surface. That night, though, I experienced no warmth. Instead, a strange apprehension started crackling down my spine. Then, from behind me, "What are you doing on my property, and what the hell did you just throw in there?" I shot around. There was a man at the edge of the clearing. The barrel of a rifle gleamed in the moonlight. "I'm so sorry. I used to live here. Or, not me exactly. My family did, and I thought the property was abandoned, so I didn't think it was trespassing." "You know what? Save it for the cops." "What? No, please. I'll leave. I need to go, please." I continued to stutter out a meek appeal, but I didn't get the sense that the man was still listening. To this day, I don't know what came over me. The possibility of my mess-up being discovered, or having to explain why I'd stolen Mickey's watch in the first place, turned me into an animal. It wasn't rational, it's just what happened. There was a soft crunch in the woods. He peered over his shoulder. I grabbed a rock off the ground and launched myself across the clearing. The man snapped forward. There was a click. I flinched, but nothing happened. The rifle was jammed. I sped up. More hollow clicks emanated through the clearing, rapid and fearful. Click, click, click. I was nearly on top of him. A cloud passed over the moon. The clearing darkened. I never got a good look at his intact face, and I suppose I'm thankful for that. He started to say something. I arched the rock over my head and brought it down. Vanishing was a simpler process back in the 90s. Wasn't much to it, really. I drove until the scenery looked different, stayed low, and kept my eyes on the news, anxiously awaiting the nationwide manhunt. No such manhunt ever came to be. Far as I could tell, at least, it wasn't the easiest thing to keep track of. I don't know who I killed, I just knew where they'd find his body. The more I thought about it, though, the more I realized they may never discover that poor man. Grandpa's estate wasn't exactly prone to foot traffic. The night after Mickey's death, I was on my way to Omaha. I planned on driving into the morning, but heavy snowfall forced me to stop. The 5-room, single-story motel I stayed at was memorably heinous. I jammed the rusty key into the lock and jerked the door open. A battalion of cockroaches skittered into the walls as the hazy lamps clicked on. The frizzy brown carpet had enough splotches and stains to resemble leopard print, and the bathroom reeked of ancient, untamed feculence, the type of caked-in, all-consuming shit stench that requires decades upon decades of intentional neglect to manifest. Not that any of that mattered, really. Even if I were lodging at the most bougie 5-star resort imaginable, swaddled in a Persian silk comforter, I don't think sleep would have come easy. It happened a little after midnight. The room was silent. I was lying on top of the bed's ratty blanket, staring at the ceiling, mentally reviewing my laundry list of mess-ups, when I finally began to feel drowsy. I let myself drift, and I was nearly asleep. Movement jolted my eyes wide open. Strange shadows danced quietly along the wall. I shot upright and rubbed the sleep from my eyes, but nothing changed. Dark blobs ballooned and shrank across the surface with fluid motion, like I was staring into a lava lamp with pitch-black plasma. I traced the shadows to their origin, the room's large, front-facing window. I knew I shouldn't push aside the blinds and look. With complete and utter certainty, I knew that. But I also knew how to help someone who's choking, and I knew that murder is an unforgivable transgression, so what difference did knowing really make? I crept across the room, put my face to the blinds, and peeked through a slit. The small parking lot was blanketed with undisturbed snow. There were no cars on the road. A soft wind brushed bits of white from here to there, but the dead trees around the motel did not waver. The world looked still. Then I saw it. I thought it was a cloud at first, but it was too low, and it was moving too quickly through the sky, casting shadows as it drifted in the moonlight. No part of it made sense. The shape was larger than an SUV, but it was as thin as a ribbon, and it rippled through the atmosphere like an eel. I pressed my face into the cold glass, mesmerized. It was alien, bizarre, almost beautiful. All of a sudden, there was a change. It was no longer drifting. It seemed to be expanding, stretching like plastic wrap. But I was mistaken, and once I realized what it was actually doing, I rocketed from the window, heart convulsing against the back of my throat. The shape wasn't stretching, it was getting closer. I rushed past the bed and down the narrow bathroom hallway. The shadows deepened. I threw myself into the cramped space between the closet and the broken mini-fridge. Through shuddering breaths, I peered around the edge. I could barely see. The room had been swallowed by an eclipse. The shape was right outside the window. A muted clicking pierced the silence. It was scarcely audible, but violently alive, pulsing with frantic energy. A noise somewhere between the tapping of a pinball machine and the clattering of rat teeth. Unnatural, inhuman, continuous. It only receded when the sun began to rise. I packed my meager belongings and left, but I was no longer going to Omaha. I had no plan, no destination. I was just driving away. By sunset, I was entering a hotel in Des Moines, 200 miles from where I'd started. The night was quiet. The sky was clear. I thought I was safe. Then, around 4 a.m., right as I was drifting off, I heard it. The clicking. I didn't look outside, not that time. From there, every day was the same. I spent 6 months evading whatever was following me. I'd start driving around dawn, careening down the highway, dead set on creating as much distance as I could from the shape. The farther I got, the longer it seemed to take to catch up with me. But no matter how many miles I traveled, I never went a full night without hearing it. It wasn't a sustainable life. I was barely sleeping. My cash was dwindling. Then, one night, the unthinkable happened. My car died. I was stranded on a deserted stretch of road, miles from the nearest city, and the sun was already sinking. I did what I could to protect my sanity, frantically taping newspapers and fast food wrappers over the windows, barricading myself from the inevitable. Then, a little after midnight, it came. It began as a black speck on the windshield, but silently, it grew, and it grew. And by the time it was hovering inches above my car, that black speck had transformed into a monstrous penumbra, submerging me in hungry darkness. I curled into a ball and clamped my hands over my ears, but it was futile. I couldn't escape the clicking, and the more I listened, the more I began to hear language in the Discord. It was hard to make out, but it sounded like a single, repeating name. Noel. Was that his name? I wondered. Was the man I killed named Noel? That would explain it. I'd escaped arrest, sure, but could I really escape judgment? Maybe the shape was sent from God to torment me. Maybe this was my punishment. Maybe this is what I deserved. I knew I could step outside and face it. I came close, but ultimately I didn't. The following morning, I stumbled out of my car and started down the road. I was in tatters by the time I reached Portland. Body aching, mind frayed, desperate for somewhere to rest. I settled on the first place I saw, a cutesy little hole-in-the-wall bed and breakfast named Honey's Hoodoo and Hostel. Best decision I ever made. Inside, the place looked more like an apothecary than a hostel. Bright plants dangled from dusty pots, and the walls were crowded with animal skulls and dream catchers. I shuffled through a maze of narrow aisles to the front desk, where a slender woman with toffee-colored eyes glanced up from a dog-eared crossword book. I tried to speak, but she shushed me, spun around, and rummaged through a cabinet. Too tired to protest, I just waited. A minute later, she slid a key and a vial of clear liquid across the counter. Drink it. We'll figure out reimbursement once you get some sleep. Room 3. I slept for an uninterrupted 16 hours. Blissfully deep, dreamless rest. In the morning, I profusely thanked my soon-to-be wife. Honey turned out to be a real miracle worker, though the medicine she gave me wasn't anything magical. It was a sleep aid. Melatonin, valerian root, and a splash of bottom-shelf vodka for a bit of a kick. Sleep was a godsend, but it didn't fix everything. I still saw it. The shape, hovering above me, skulking through the night sky, blending in with the clouds. It was always there. I didn't understand why I'd begun keeping its distance, but I didn't dwell on it either. Time passed. I didn't tell her much until our son was born. Looking down the barrel of fatherhood, I came clean to Honey. I told her about Mickey's death and how I could have saved him, about my cold family and my strange, dogmatic grandfather. I even told her about the thing in the sky, though I downplayed some of the insanity. I told her about everything except Noel. I could never tell her about the man I killed. To her credit, she didn't judge me, though she didn't grant me clemency either. All she said was, "The deepest tells are usually the ones we dig with our own two hands, Lucas." Things were quiet for a long while. I buried the rest of my guilt and my shame in order to focus on my family. That seemed to do the trick until a few years ago. When my son turned 19, the same age I was when Mickey died, there was a change. Out of nowhere, something began waking me up in the middle of the night. It was sporadic at first, once a month, maybe less, without warning. I'd bolt upright in bed like I'd been physically ripped from sleep. The same way you'd wake up to a smoke alarm blaring, but there'd never be any noise. No clicking, no shadows at my window, nothing at all. I doubled up on Honey's special sleep aid and tried to ignore it. Slowly, though, the frequency increased. Once a month to every other week, then every week, every few days, every night. I tripled the dose of my sleep aid, quadrupled it, added more vodka. Nothing helped. Then last week, it happened. Once again, I bolted upright, but the room wasn't silent. A faint noise curled into my ear, similar to the clicking, but not frantic. It was organized, controlled, rhythmic. I shut my eyes and listened. A sinking dread crawled through my body. The noise wasn't coming from the window, it was coming from right next to me. I opened my eyes and turned to face Honey. She was sleeping soundly. I leaned in, closer, close enough that my ear was resting on the front of her neck, and I felt something. There was something hard beneath her skin. Not bone, not cartilage. It was too broad, too flat, and up close, the sound was unmistakable. It wasn't a click, it was a tick, like from a watch. I lifted my head and looked at her. Honey's eyelids were closed, but to my horror, I could see her eyes glowing dully beneath them. A pearly light shining through the translucent membrane, fixed right on me, staring at me, judging me. That night, I left my family behind. I got in my car and drove south, and overhead, the shape followed. Locating Mickey's widow was surprisingly easy. She lived in a single-story ranchero on the outskirts of my hometown. The lawn was dense and unkempt. Neglected Christmas decorations lay strewn about, plastic elves and tangles of string lights peeking out of the overgrowth. The roof had holes big enough to be visible from the sidewalk. I breathed deep and began pacing up to the front door, trying not to ruminate on how the disrepair was likely downstream of my failure to act all those years ago. Jagged wood bit into my skin as I knocked. A stout woman with a gray ponytail and bits of red lipstick on her front teeth answered. Without preamble, I asked her if she was Mickey's widow. She nodded. The drive had given me ample time to plan out a concise, remorseful confession. But, in the moment, all that got thrown out the window. I barged into the woman's house and just started talking, told her everything. I used to work alongside her husband. I was there the night he choked. I could have saved his life. I skipped town the night he died, never looked back, and I was so goddamn sorry. When I was done, I waited for her to speak. I expected anger, revulsion, violence. Instead, all I got was confusion. You never heard, did you? I cocked my head. They did an autopsy on Mickey, and well, he died of a massive heart attack. The coroner said there was nothing anyone could have done to save him. My vision blurred. Nausea hit me fast and hard. The guilt, the shame, the boundless, unrelenting anxiety. It was all for nothing. I killed that man for nothing. As I drive, I find myself dwelling on what Honey said all those years ago. The deepest hells are usually the ones we dig with our own two hands. You know what that makes me think about? Something my grandpa dug with his own two hands. The reservoir, the stagnant water, the broken things, the punishment ceremonies, the old man on his knees, chanting unintelligible Vietnamese prayers and repeating a two-word phrase in English. That's when it hit me. If I couldn't save Mickey, then I never made a mistake. If I never made a mistake, I shouldn't have thrown this broken watch into the reservoir. The shape wasn't saying Noel. It was repeating the phrase, no hell. It's him, I think. I'm en route to my grandfather's now, hoping to get there before the sun sets. This all started with that broken watch. If I dredge it from the reservoir, maybe it'll stop. Maybe I can finally be free. Or, more likely, everything will just get much, much worse. And that's okay. All things considered, I deserve that, don't I? Guys, I'm honestly not too sure what to say about this one. I think this is the first time where I've read a story, and the scariest thing about it is the guilt. This guy lived his whole life with this cloud of guilt over him for something he didn't do. I mean, well, he did kill that one guy, but he literally killed him for no reason at all. Just honestly, very unfortunate. Anyways, let me know what you guys thought about this one down in the comments, and let's get on with the next one. It's from r/snowsleep from user Wisto. If your delivery driver says he forgot your drink, don't open the door again. I know how stupid this sounds because I used to read posts like this and think the same thing. Just don't open the door. Call the police. Just get out. That is what I normally say, guys. You never realize how useless all those thoughts are until you're standing barefoot in your hallway at midnight, holding a kitchen knife in one hand and your phone in the other, listening to someone breathe on the other side of your front door. It started with Thai food. I had just moved into my new apartment 3 weeks earlier. Nothing dramatic. No haunted backstory, no weird old building with a caretaker who warned me about the basement. Just a normal second-floor apartment above a row of shops. The kind of place where the hallway always smelled faintly of carpet cleaner and someone else's dinner. I'd moved there after my breakup with Lewis. We had been together for 4 years. He wasn't dangerous or evil or anything like that. He was just useless in that quiet, exhausting way that makes you feel like you're raising a grown man. When he finally left, I felt sad for about a week and then mostly relieved. For the first time in a long time, this place was mine. My mugs in the cupboard, my clothes in the wardrobe, my music playing without him asking if we could put something else on. That night, I got home late from work. It had been raining all day and my shoes were soaked through. I didn't have the energy to cook, so I ordered from the Thai place down the road. Green curry, jasmine rice, spring rolls, and a Diet Coke. The app said 25 minutes. I changed into pajamas, washed my face, and sat on the sofa scrolling through my phone. I remember feeling almost peaceful. That's the part that bothers me now. How normal it all was. How close I came to having an ordinary, boring night. At 10:43, my buzzer went. I pressed the intercom. Hello? Delivery. His voice was soft, youngish maybe. Hard to tell through the speaker. Second floor, flat 6. I know, he said. I frowned at that, but only for a second. Drivers get the flat number on the app. Obviously he knew. I buzzed him in and waited by the door. A minute later, there was a knock. When I opened it, he was standing too close. That was the first thing I noticed. Most delivery drivers step back after knocking. This one was right there, almost filling the doorway. He wore a black raincoat with the hood up and one of those thermal delivery bags over his shoulder. I couldn't see much of his face, just his mouth and a bit of stubble. Aaron? He asked. That's me. He handed me the bag. Enjoy your food. Thanks. I took it and was about to close the door when he said, Sorry, I forgot your drink. I looked into the bag. Curry, rice, spring rolls, no Diet Coke. It's fine, I said. Don't worry about it. I've got it downstairs. Honestly, it's fine. I'll bring it up. Before I could answer, he turned and walked away. I closed the door and locked it. I don't know why I locked it so quickly. Maybe because he'd stood too close. Maybe because he had said my name like he already knew me. Maybe because I live alone now, and living alone changes the sound of every small thing. I put the food on the coffee table and tried to shake it off. The curry was hot, the rice was still steaming, and for a few minutes I convinced myself I was being ridiculous. Then I found the receipt. It was folded under the spring rolls. Not the restaurant receipt, that was stapled to the outside of the bag. This was a plain white slip of paper, torn badly at one edge. At first, I thought it was just some kitchen note that had fallen in by accident. Then I saw my name. Aaron M., flat 6, lives alone, no dog, chain lock only, bedroom window faces service alley, usually home after 7. I stared at it for a long time. My first thought was Lewis. It had to be Lewis. Some pathetic attempt to scare me, to make me call him, to make me feel like I still needed someone. It sounded exactly like the sort of thing he would think was clever after a few drinks. I picked up my phone and called him. He answered on the 5th ring. What? Did you send me something? What? Don't play dumb. Did you send someone to my flat? There was a pause, then a tired sigh. Aaron, it's nearly 11. I got a note in my takeaway. What note? One that says I live alone. Another pause. This one felt different. Are you serious? Yes. Where are you? In my flat, obviously. Lock your door. It is locked. No, properly lock it. That annoyed me. Even then, like he was suddenly the sensible one. I have locked it. Send me a picture. I almost told him to piss off, but I took a photo of the note and sent it. He called back 10 seconds later. That wasn't me. His voice had changed. He sounded awake now. Lewis, I swear on my mother, that wasn't me. Call the police. Before I could answer, someone knocked on my door. 3 soft knocks. Not loud, not aggressive, just polite. I stood in the middle of my living room with the phone against my ear. Aaron, Lewis said. Another knock. Then the delivery driver's voice. Forgot your drink. I didn't move. Lewis kept saying my name, but he sounded far away. The driver knocked again. I can leave it here if you want. I walked slowly to the door and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. No delivery driver, no drink, nothing. I stepped back. My phone buzzed in my hand. A notification from the delivery app. Your driver is at your door. I looked at the peephole again. Empty hallway. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I don't know why I answered. I think my brain was still trying to make sense of it, still trying to turn it into something normal. Hello? The delivery driver said. You shouldn't have looked at the receipt. I couldn't speak. You were meant to eat first, he said. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor and the call stayed connected. I could hear his breathing through the speaker. Then the handle moved, slowly. Down, then up. Down, then up. I had locked the door, but he was testing it gently, like he didn't want to make too much noise. I picked up the phone and ended the call. My hands were shaking so badly it took 3 tries. Then I called 999. The operator asked what service I needed. Police, I whispered. What's happening? There's someone outside my flat. Are you in immediate danger? Yes, I think so. Is your door locked? Yes. Can you see the person? I looked through the peephole again. Empty hallway. No, I said, but he's there. As soon as I said it, the letterbox lifted. Just a little. A black gap opened near my knees. I stumbled back. The operator asked me what had happened. He opened the letterbox. Do not approach the door, he said. Go into a room with a lock if you can. My bathroom had a lock. It was cheap and flimsy, but it was something. I grabbed the biggest knife from the kitchen drawer and backed toward the bathroom. The letterbox clicked shut. Then the knocking started again. 3 knocks, pause. 3 knocks, pause. Aaron, he called. I locked myself in the bathroom and sat on the edge of the bath with the knife on my lap. The operator kept talking to me, calm and steady, asking questions I could barely answer. My address, my name, whether I had seen a weapon, whether there was another way into the flat. No, I said, just the front door. Then I remembered the note. Bedroom window faces service alley. My bedroom window. The one I had opened earlier because the flat smelled of paint and damp clothes. I stood so fast, the knife clattered into the bath. What is it? The operator asked. My bedroom window. Is someone trying to get in? I don't know. Stay where you are if the bathroom door locks. The problem was, from the bathroom, I couldn't see the bedroom. I couldn't see the hallway. I couldn't see anything. The flat went quiet. That was worse than the knocking. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the operator breathing through my phone and my own heart hammering in my ears. Then, my bedroom door creaked. I had left it open. I knew I had. But I heard it creak. The sound was slow and careful. The sound of someone touching the door with their fingertips and pushing it wider. "He's inside," I whispered. The operator said police were close. Close didn't mean inside the flat. Close didn't mean between me and him. A floorboard moved in the hallway, then another. He was walking toward the bathroom. I picked the knife back up and stood behind the door. My legs felt weak. I remember thinking I was going to die in pajamas, which is a stupid thing to think, but it was there in my head. I was going to die barefoot, in old pajamas with Thai food cooling on the coffee table. The bathroom handle dipped. Once, twice. Then his voice came through the door. "You should have taken the drink." I covered my mouth with my hand. He laughed quietly. "I'm not angry," he said. "You just made it messy." The door moved in the frame as he pressed his shoulder against it. The bathroom lock was a tiny silver turn lock, the kind you use when someone might accidentally walk in while you're brushing your teeth. It was never meant to keep anyone out. He pressed again. Wood cracked near the latch. The operator was saying something. I couldn't understand her. Then there was a bang from downstairs. A voice shouted, "Police!" The pressure left the door. For 1 second, I thought he had run. Then the bathroom door burst open. He came through with his hood still up and a screwdriver in his right hand. I swung the knife without thinking. It caught his arm. He shouted and slammed into me, knocking me back against the sink hard enough to crack the mirror. I dropped the knife. He grabbed my wrist and squeezed so hard my fingers went numb. "Stupid," he said. That was all he got out. 2 officers came down the hallway shouting. One of them hit him from the side and they both went into the bath. The other officer pulled me into the hallway and kept saying, "You're safe, you're safe, you're safe." Even though I didn't feel safe. I don't think I've felt safe since. They arrested him in my bathroom. His name was Daniel Price. At least that was the name he gave them. He wasn't the delivery driver assigned to my order. The real driver was a woman named Melissa who had been found in her car 3 streets away, unconscious but alive. Someone had hit her from behind after she collected my food. Daniel had taken her phone, her thermal bag, and her jacket. That would have been bad enough. Then they searched his car. They found printed receipts, dozens of them, maybe more. Names, addresses, notes. Some were crossed out, some had ticks next to them. Mine had a circle around it. The police wouldn't tell me much, they never do. They kept using words like ongoing investigation and potential link and recovered items. But one officer told me something by accident. He said, the others were lucky too. Then he stopped talking. Others. I stayed with Lewis that night, which tells you how scared I was. I sat on his sofa until morning and watched the rain run down the window. He made tea and kept apologizing for things that had nothing to do with him. By midday, I had convinced myself it was over. Daniel was arrested, Melissa was alive, the police had receipts. The locks were being changed. I would move again if I had to. Then my phone buzzed. A notification from the delivery app. I stared at it, confused, because I had deleted the app in the police station. I had watched it disappear from my screen. But there it was. Your driver is nearby. I opened the notification. The map showed a little bike icon moving down Lewis's street. I stood up so quickly, I spilled tea over my leg. Lewis asked what was wrong. The bike icon stopped outside his house. Then the doorbell rang. Lewis went pale. "No," I said, "don't." He walked to the front window and looked through the curtain. "There's no one there," he said. My phone buzzed again. "Your driver is at your door." Then another message appeared. "Forgot your drink." That was 3 days ago. I'm writing this from a hotel room under a name that isn't mine. The police have my phone now. They said there was no active order, no driver, no record of any notification being sent. But I saw it. Lewis saw the doorbell camera too. Empty porch, no one there. Just 3 knocks recorded by the audio. 3 soft knocks, pause. 3 soft knocks, pause. I don't know whether Daniel had someone working with him. I don't know whether he set something up before they arrested him. I don't know why the app keeps coming back on every phone I borrow, or why the notifications know where I am before I tell anyone. All I know is this. If you order food late at night and the driver says he forgot your drink, tell him to leave it outside. Do not open the door. Do not check the hallway. Do not believe the peephole. And if your phone says the driver is nearby after you've already deleted the app, get out before he knocks. Because last night at 10:43, someone slipped a receipt under my hotel room door. It had my fake name on it, my room number, no dog, traveling alone, bathroom lock weak. At the bottom, written in pen, there were 4 words. You still seem thirsty. This was a scary story, but also like a thriller. Like at this point, I want a police officer standing outside my door at all times, because that's just creepy. I love this comment, gratefully hugging my 3 loud-ass dogs who practically shoved their way through the door when I opened it to grab a delivery. The next story today is also from r/nosleep from user Linus287. I found a door in my apartment that wasn't there yesterday. I've lived in apartment 6B for 4 years. It's not a large place. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a narrow kitchen, and a living room with windows that look out over the back alley. I know every crack in the paint, every sound the pipes make at night, every place where the floorboards complain when you step on them. That's why I noticed the door immediately. It was in the hallway between my bedroom and the bathroom, where there had always been a blank wall. A white wooden door. Plain, old, perfectly ordinary, except it had not been there the night before. At first I thought I was still dreaming. I stood in the hallway in my t-shirt and sweatpants, holding a mug of coffee I couldn't remember pouring, staring at the brass doorknob. There was no frame damage, no dust, no smell of fresh paint. It looked like it had always belonged there. I touched the wall around it. Solid. I touched the door. Cold. Not cool like wood in the morning, but cool like something kept underground. I called my landlord. Very funny, he said. I'm not joking. There was a pause. What kind of door? What do you mean, what kind of door? A normal door. Another pause. Don't open it. I almost laughed, but his voice stopped me. He didn't sound annoyed. He sounded afraid. Mr. Keller, I said slowly, why would there be a door in my hallway? I'll come over, he said. Do not open it. Do not touch it again. Then he hung up. I stood there for a long time, looking at the door. The apartment was silent. Too silent. Usually, I could hear traffic from the street, my neighbor's TV, the old radiator clicking. But in that moment, everything had gone quiet, as if the whole building were holding its breath. Then someone knocked from the other side. 3 slow knocks. I dropped my coffee. It shattered on the floor, hot liquid spreading around my bare feet. The knocks came again. 3 times. Not loud, not desperate, polite, like someone waiting to be invited in. I backed away into the living room and grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a cast iron pan from the kitchen. Then I waited. Nothing happened. 5 minutes passed. 10. The door stood there, white and still. At 9:17, my landlord arrived. He was usually a cheerful man. Round face, red cheeks, always smelling faintly of cigarette smoke and peppermint gum. That morning, he looked 20 years older. He pushed past me without saying hello and stopped in the hallway. When he saw the door, all the color left his face. No, he whispered. You know what this is? He didn't answer. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a ring of keys. His hands were shaking so badly that the keys jingled like tiny bells. What are you doing? I asked. Locking it. From this side? He ignored me and tried key after key in the brass lock. None fit. Then the knocking started again. 3 slow knocks. Mr. Keller froze. A voice came from behind the door. Soft, female. Martin? My landlord stepped back as if he had been slapped. Martin, the voice repeated. I know you're there. I looked at him. Who is that? His voice opened, but no words came out. The voice behind the door sighed. It was a sad sound, almost human. Martin, please, it's so dark. My landlord grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt. You need to leave, he said. What? Now. Pack a bag, stay somewhere else. Are you insane? What's behind that door? He looked at me then, and I understood something horrible. He did not know. Not exactly. Before I could ask anything else, the doorknob turned. Very slowly. Left. Right. Left again. Mr. Keller whispered something in German I didn't understand and pulled me toward the front door. That was when the voice changed. It became my mother's. Daniel? I stopped moving. My mother died when I was 16. Cancer took her slowly, then all at once. I had forgotten many things about her over the years, but not her voice. Never her voice. Daniel, she said again from behind the door. Honey, please help me. My landlord tightened his grip. Do not listen. I could not breathe. Mom? The door creaked. Just a little. A thin black line appeared between the door and the frame. From inside came a smell I remembered instantly. Lavender soap, hospital sheets, rain on the day of her funeral. My eyes filled with tears before I could stop them. Daniel, my mother whispered. I waited so long. I pulled away from Mr. Keller. He slapped me, hard. The sound cracked through the apartment. I stumbled back, stunned. Listen to me, he hissed. That is not your mother. The door opened another inch. Behind it, there was no room, no closet, no hallway, only darkness. Not the kind of darkness you see when the lights are off. This was thicker, deeper. It seemed to move slightly, like black water. And from inside it, my mother began to cry. I hated my landlord in that moment. I hated him because part of me knew he was right. And I hated him more because another part of me still wanted to open the door. He dragged me out of the apartment. The second we crossed the threshold into the stairwell, all the sound came rushing back. Cars outside, someone coughing below us, a dog barking in another unit. Normal life. Behind my apartment door, something slammed. Once, twice. Then came my mother's voice, muffled now but screaming. Daniel, don't leave me again. I spent that night in a hotel. Mr. Keller refused to explain everything. He only told me that apartment 6B had been renovated in 1998 after a fire. 3 people had died in the building before the fire department arrived. One of them was his wife. Her name had been Anna. The next morning he called a priest, then a locksmith. Then 2 men I had never seen before who arrived in a van with no company name on it. They went into my apartment together. Only one of them came back out. The priest was pale and shaking. The locksmith had blood on his shirt. Mr. Keller would not look at me. What happened? I asked. The locksmith pushed past me and left without his tools. Mr. Keller handed me an envelope. Inside was cash, a lot of it. Move, he said. What about my things? Leave them. Are you serious? He finally looked at me. His eyes were wet. The door is gone, he said, but now there's a window. I did not go back. Not for my clothes, not for my laptop, not for the box of photographs under my bed. I found another apartment across town. I changed my number. I tried to forget the whole thing. For a while, I almost did. Until tonight. At 2:13 in the morning, I woke to the sound of knocking. 3 slow knocks. Not from my front door, not from the hallway, from behind my bedroom wall. Then my mother's voice whispered, Daniel, I found another way in. Geez, what a terrifying concept. What I really liked about this one is that they never fully explain what the door is. The scariest part is that leaving the apartment doesn't save him. Just when you think at the end that he's escaping this terrible thing, it just followed him. Anyways, let me know what you guys thought about that one. Shout out to the author, Linus287. Their Buy Me a Coffee link is going to be in the description of this video. The next story today is from r/no-sleep from user Let's Split Up, also known as Quincy Lee. You should definitely go to their website and check out quincyleestories.com. They're an amazing writer. I read their stuff on the channel all the time. I saw a creepy painting for sale online. Did not order it, but it arrived on my doorstep and now I can't get rid of it. I didn't order the painting. Let's get that out of the way right now. I was mildly buzzed, yes, but not so inebriated that I'd mistakenly click buy now and order the scariest painting I've ever seen in my life. Like most people, I like to look at stuff I'd never buy online. Last month it was houses I can't afford on Zillow. This month it's paintings. If I really like one, I might save it to make it my desktop theme. That's the extent of my commitment to supporting art. See, I'm too poor to afford to deck my walls in original artwork, even if I wanted to order a painting, which I didn't. Especially not this painting. It depicted a figure in an impressionist style, sort of like the famous Munch, The Scream, crossed with the style of Rembrandt, the figure all cloaked in darkness except for the illumination on the face. The face was the most horrifying part. A fleshy patchwork of light in the otherwise dark canvas, featureless, indistinguishable, like a nightmarish figure out of a dream. I remember staring at my phone for several long minutes, zooming in on that figure, wondering what it was about the not quite humanness of it that made it so creepy. Even through the phone screen, even with no eyes, I could swear I felt it watching me. I took a screenshot, sent it to some friends, asking if it wasn't the creepiest thing they'd ever seen in their lives. That conversation quickly devolved into us sending lots of scary art pictures back and forth, like classic paintings of spooky children, disproportionate babies, a little Bosch, and so on. Fast forward 3 days. There's a package on my doorstep waiting for me when I get home, wrapped in brown paper. I tear open the paper packaging, and it's the painting. That painting. The featureless smear of a face stares at me from the dark canvas. It looks so fleshy, I could almost sink my fingers into it. Now, I assumed, of course, that someone ordered the painting for me as a joke, but none of my friends would admit to it. The conversation turned to teasing about me being cursed. To me, this was just further evidence that one or all of them were playing what they thought was the world's most hilarious prank. And honestly, I thought it was kind of funny too, so I went along. I hung the cursed painting in my living room, and that was that. It should have gone down in the book of my life as a mildly amusing footnote, something to tell guests about when they came into my home and asked what the hell was that creepy painting on the wall. But a week after it arrived, I was sitting at my desk working when I swear I heard a quiet rustle. And you know how you can feel it when someone in your periphery is staring? The sensation was so strong, I turned around and I almost screamed. The painting had eyes, and they were watching me. And I swear to God, swear to you on everything holy, it blinked. Maybe the blink was just my imagining, but it definitely had newly painted eyes there in its fleshy, impressionistic blotch of a face. Smears of darkness with just a tiny hint of light reflecting from them. Of course, I snapped a photo and sent it to my friends. And of course, they all assumed I'd painted on the eyes myself. Even I had to admit, when I got up close, it was clear that new paint had been applied on top of the original. I sent another text to the group. Alright, which one of you jokers have been in my house? Denials all around. Maybe it was a prank, I thought. Most of my close friends know where I keep my spare key. But the painting kept changing. The changes were so subtle, I honestly didn't notice at first. Even when I did, I assumed it was whoever had pranked me by buying the painting, that they were adding brushstrokes whenever we had get-togethers. It almost became normal, the way I'd see new additions, just a little at a time. We often joked about it, everyone wondering who the mystery artist was who kept adding details. My friends would later tell me they all honestly thought it was me. But what really started to creep me out was when the changes to the painting made it look like me. One day I woke up and walked out to a creepy, impressionistic portrait of myself and decided enough was enough. I took the painting off the wall, dragged it downstairs to the dumpster, and tossed it in. Good riddance. But when I came home from work, it was back on its place on the wall. I was beginning to question my sanity. I tossed it out again, but the next morning when I woke up, it was back on the wall, and its lip was curled, like it was smiling. I had to go to work, and since I didn't want to run down to the dumpster again, I just turned it around so it was facing the wall. At least that way, it couldn't watch me. When I came home from work, I considered trying to throw it away one more time, or burn it, but I was exhausted after a long day, and since it was still facing the wall, its eyes no longer following me, I left it there, had dinner, and spent the evening scrolling through images of exotic plants, my newest fixation. Decided I would deal with the creepy curse thing in the morning. I did notice, though, as I was getting ready for bed, that it was crooked. I straightened it on the wall and went to bed. In the middle of the night, I was woken by a loud crash. When I rushed out to see what had caused it, I found that the painting had fallen from the wall. Its frame was cracked. Frowning, I nudged it with my toe, flipped it over. The canvas on the other side was torn and empty, completely empty. There was no figure in the painting, and suddenly I had that feeling again so strong, that feeling of eyes. I backed to the corner of the living room, scanning all corners of my apartment. The sofa, the table, the kitchen area across the open bar, the windows. Where were the eyes watching me from? Where? I was still standing there with my heart hammering like I was about to go into cardiac arrest, looking in disbelief at a broken painting and wondering what was going on when I heard this patter of footsteps and a click. My bedroom door had just closed. Immediately, I called the police to report an intruder. But while I was on the phone with the dispatcher, trying not to sound insane when I described the painting and the figure that was missing from it, suddenly it struck me that this might be one more part of the prank, that one of my friends, the one who might have been making alterations to the painting, could have snuck in to make some final adjustments. And maybe after they accidentally knocked the painting off the wall and caused the crash, they ran into my room to hide from me. Not entirely plausible, but then neither were the fears I was babbling to this 911 operator. She assured me they'd send someone out. I think she assumed I was high as a kite, but also that it was better to be safe than sorry. Or maybe she just thought I needed a wellness check. I'd have thought so, too, after being on that call with me. While waiting for their arrival, in case it was a prank, I steeled myself and went to the bedroom door. Then, just to be on the safe side, I grabbed a kitchen knife. A knife I swore I wouldn't use unless I knew for sure it wasn't one of my friends. And then I went back to the bedroom door, shoved it open, and brandished the knife while yelling. Standing next to my bed was my reflection. No, not my reflection, but that's what it looked like. It was me. But the hair was messier, like the brushstrokes weren't quite finished, and the clothes were not quite right. Almost a strange mix of everything I wore all put together. Like the painter couldn't decide on which outfit, so went with them all. But the smile was sharp enough, as were the eyes, and the not me looked at me and raised its hand. In that hand, it held a painted version of my knife. Shit, I gasped. Shit, its lips imitated. I don't know which of us lunged first. Probably the painted me. Real me was just standing there in shock. Next thing I knew, I felt the thunk of an impact in my stomach. And then, I don't even know how to describe. The painted knife handle was sticking out of me, and where the blade entered the skin, paint flecked away instead of blood. Instinct kicked in, and I fought like a wildcat, slashing and stabbing, dragging my knife through that other me in a slicing motion, again and again. The other me opened its mouth in a scream, but all I heard was the ragged sound of canvas ripping. It made a final effort to cut through me, but then my last slice tore it in two. It went limp, only a ragged piece of canvas. I was bleeding from a deep gash in my belly. I believe I lost consciousness. Paramedics later told me they'd found me on the floor, bleeding from a knife wound. Draped over me was a canvas that I'd apparently cut free from the broken frame. They made me get a psych eval. You see, there was no evidence of anyone else in my apartment. The authorities believed that I got angry at the painting, tore it apart, and somehow accidentally stabbed myself in the frenzy. When I finally returned home, the painting, the broken frame, and what was left of the canvas were gone. Not a trace of them, not a scrap. And I've been wondering ever since, what would have happened if I hadn't woken up? Was it going to kill me? Or was it going to somehow put me in the painting and perhaps take my place? I'll never know, because the painting is gone. Gone. From my life at least, but here's the thing. One of my friends sent me a link yesterday, told me they stumbled across it on an art website. The painting is back up on sale. For the love of God, do not buy. Quincy Lee is just another one of those authors that just never misses. They always have such great stories. Like, reading this story really just makes me want to only have paintings of teddy bears and rainbows. Anyways, that's all the scary Reddit stories and Minecraft I have for you today. If you liked this video, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Peace. 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 For watching.